So Doug, the hardest part of my job, Deb's job, is making sure that somebody can even get a loan. Can you explain to me what the difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved is?
And I can, and that is it's a big difference between the two. The first thing that we want a buyer to come into is to get pre-qualified. That's where I can sit down with them, talk to them even on the phone, and ask them some basic questions to make sure they're pre-qualified to buy this house that they're asking you about.
And what information are they going to need to get to that level?
I'm going to ask them on the phone. It's okay, Deb, so you've called me. You want to get pre-qualified. Deb, I've got a couple questions for you. What is your income? What is your credit score? And if you don't know it, we're going to talk about that too. And how much money do you have to put down to buy a house? Those are the 3 basic questions I'm going to ask you to get pre-qualified. Because you know, Debbie, if you tell me those things, I can say, okay, based on your income, based on the score,
we're in the ballpark.
You can qualify for X amount. And so that's where we start.
All right, so they're pre-qualified. However, there's a whole big difference between pre-qualified and pre-approved.
Yes.
Once you look at their tax returns and see what they wrote off and see what the true picture is, there's a chance of fallout, isn't there?
Yes, and so that is why a seller today, if I'm a buyer and I want to buy a house, a seller wants to know, have you been pre-approved, not pre-qualified? Because just what you said, by the time I actually verify their income, it could be different than what they told me on the phone when we pre-qualified. Not because they told me that incorrectly, they just didn't know that we're going to look at income differently maybe than what they told me on the pre-qualification.
Like commissions.
Absolutely.
Commissions, overtime, bonus. Tips, all of those things these variables are so important to get pre-approved. So if we're going to segue between a pre-qualified buyer to a pre-approved, completely different. I'm going to sit down with you again this time, Debbie, a little bit different scenario. We're probably going to have an appointment and I'm going to say we have to pull your credit, not what is your credit score.
Right.
Not what is your income, but bring me your pay stubs, your tax returns, your W-2s, let me go through income, and then your bank statements. I asked you earlier how much you had to put down. Show me how much you have to put down. And then what I do, Colleen, at this point is I actually drive together a pre-approval letter that I hand to the buyer that he can use to buy that house.
Well, as I remind a lot of people, they go, oh, it's no problem. I've got an 800 credit score. Well, I remind them, no. It's not about your credit score. It's about your credit score, your income, your debt ratio, a lot of things. You might have one little late payment and it'll affect you getting a loan. Is that right?
That is right. We have seen an 800 credit score. It wasn't quite an 800. It was actually 7-something, right? But they had a late payment in the last year to a mortgage. They were disqualified then for a loan. So it's not just about credit score. There's all these other components that are important in this pre-approval scenario. So great step. Get pre-qualified, start with your loan officer, but finish up with getting pre-approved.
That's right. Call Doug Luza.